Oh, I think we are. All
Okay.
right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Sean, and I work with Zemplee. Zemplee is a company that offers AI remote monitoring for seniors that can be used in private residences and homes, or it can be used in senior care programs and facilities. And we just released our top 10 cities to age in place in the United States, our 2025 report. We've done this for 4 years running. And this year we took a different look at how we look at the environment that makes a city a great place to age in place. And so we wanted to host a webinar about that. And so joining me today is Ashanya Antapur, and she has been analyzing the data for these reports for Zemplee for the last 4 years, and she's a product manager at Zemplee. And then also joining us is Shannon Guzman from AARP. She is the Senior Director of Housing and Livable Communities for AARP's Public Policy Institute. And so we're glad to have you both with us. Would you like to start by introducing yourself any further? Shannon, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So thank you, Sean, for the invitation to come to speak to everyone today. In my role as Senior Director of the Housing and Livable Communities team, we work on age-friendly housing issues and livable communities issues in general, analyzing policies that help support people who want to remain in their homes and communities as they age, as well as developing resources, one of which I'll mention later on during our conversation, the Livability Index. Um, so we want to help people make the best choices for themselves for now and into the future. So that's the type of things that we work on.
Super. Ashani, would you like to introduce yourself and what you do at Zemplee?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Ishanya Antapur, and I lead product at Zemplee, where, as Sean mentioned, we are building predictive and generative AI models to help with the care ecosystem and really trying to solve this problem of aging in place, making it not just possible, but more transparent and more connected for everyone involved in the care ecosystem. So basically, our system will kind of track and monitor behavior, activity levels. We also do health monitoring, and we will release those insights to the care teams, as well as we have like proactive alerts and then further insights. And we have a whole smart speaker integration as well. And so, yeah, our goals, our missions of helping further along aging in place within the US and then eventually globally is really what this report, this annual report that we do, Top 10 Cities, is all about. And we hope the report reflects that same vision that we have as a company to help keep older adults safe and healthy and comfortable as long as possible.
That's awesome. I want to start with I think we all know some of the issues that are facing our society as people get older. The population of people over 60 is growing. The resources and staff for care are challenged. And I think as my generation, I'm in Gen X, I'm kind of at the end of Gen X, but older Gen X people are starting to turn 60, and everybody knows Gen X is just like so different from previous generations. And I think this generation has different ideas of what they want retirement to look like. And so I'm curious, like in your respective roles, given the way that everything is changing, what makes a community or a city or a town a great place to retire?
So is that for me? Both of
Sure, I'd
us?
love you. I'd love to
Okay.
hear you both, but please jump in. Yes.
Sure. So I'll kind of set the stage, and I'm also a Gen Xer, and most of my siblings are too. So it's great to be able to talk about the issues that impact older adults and things that are impacting my life as well. So, the US is aging rapidly, as you already mentioned. It's projected that we will have 20% of the population that is age 65 and older, just in a few short years by 2030. And then by 2034, it's projected that the number of older adults who are age 65 and older will actually outnumber those who are 18 and younger, age 18 and younger for the first time in US history. And so it's important to, understand the fact that we're aging and very rapidly, but our communities aren't really prepared, largely because they weren't designed and developed with aging in mind. And so, we want to make sure that we're implementing solutions that help address the needs of this aging population. And, we're all aging, so we shouldn't see it as a problem, but we should see it as an opportunity to help improve the lives of people of all ages. And so to be inclusive of those who are aging. AARP research has consistently shown that older adults want to age in their home and communities. So that means that we have to take action now, so that we're addressing their wants and their needs within their communities. So one of the things that AARP encourages is the creation of livable communities. And these are communities that are safe and secure, offer affordable housing, transportation, and other supportive services for people of all ages, of all backgrounds. And then once those things are in place, people can participate fully in community life. So civically, economically, have community connections. And so some of the key features that are critical to having this livable community are safe and walkable streets, accessible transportation, having a range of housing options, and access to very essential services like healthcare and grocery stores and other community features that help people maintain independence and keep them active and keep them a part of the community.
Shania, what is your perspective on what makes a place a great place to age in place?
Yeah, I love what you said, Shannon, and it really brought to mind just I think we've all seen how physically hard it is to age in terms of the fact, like I've noticed in the past few years alone, just the amount of like wheelchair or accessibility parking spaces that they've had to build and incorporate and redo infrastructure because it wasn't built to accommodate that in the first place. And so that's a very like physical on the ground example. And I think in the space that we're working in, we're kind of doing that with the digital world. There's so many things that fall under this, from web accessibility to simply products that are built with older adults in mind. And we are part of this kind of phase of wanting to build for that community. And I think that as we all age, I'm a Gen Z slash millennial, somewhere on the cusp, but it's certainly something that is on our minds. I mean, I think we definitely have things like housing cost in mind. And because we have those some of those stressors now, a lot of people I know in my community, even though we're younger, we're already starting to think about what is aging going to look like for us, and how are we going to, get past these first couple 30 years here. I think the values stay the same, retirement and aging out of technically the corporate or the hustle culture isn't it's something we all desire, but we want to keep the independence, the flexibility, and especially the connection in the community. I think in terms like social media existing is a really interesting concept as well because we're so used to a digitally connected world. And I think that'll be really interesting as we age to see how that evolves too. But for the current aging population, of course, we want to balance access to healthcare, access to resources, as you mentioned, Shannon. It's so important for our older adults to stay civically connected and then also engage with community in terms of like mental health is something we've seen a lot as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, cities and towns that can facilitate that. I love the walkability aspect of things, or even just things like public transport or rideshare based things that are specifically built for older adults can make a city really livable.
That's a good segue, I think, into this last report from Zemplee on the top 10 cities to age in place. Can you share a little bit about how you approach that differently, like what factors you looked at and why? And I think you kind of already, but it just seems like a nice.
Of course, yeah. So, like as Sean mentioned, this is the fourth year we're doing this report, and we learn every single year. But the biggest evolution this year was we introduced a whole new factor we call smart aging infrastructure. And that was basically looking at a couple things like involving digital equity and access to technology, things like broadband access in these metropolitan areas, as well as the telehealth usage, which has seen obviously huge spikes since the COVID pandemic of 2020, and it's kind of continuing onwards, and telehealth technology is exploding. So we recognize also that digital access is really fundamental to aging going forward, just like physical access is still fundamental. Cities that kind of ranked highly and stood out to us this way were Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, and then Portland in Oregon, which really rose up in the rankings because of some of their digital access programs that are hosted by the city or digital equity programs hosted by the city. For example, we really love what's going on in Pittsburgh, which they have this digital equity coalition that has a mission to close the divide for digital access for seniors, for also K through 12, and then also Black citizens of their community. And so we really liked, John and I loved the ethos of that they're trying to build this age-friendly, but also general community-friendly digital access in their city. And then we also did consider environmental quality a lot as well. I think in the current climate is very important to consider. And by that, I mean, with AI, we know that that is kind of having a huge impact on climate right now. And we are an AI company. So we want to be really mindful of being ethical around our use of AI and sort of making sure we look at these problems of how is AI going to impact things like water quality, air quality, and the environment for different metropolitan areas or even smaller cities. So we did consider environment as a great factor in our report this year.
Um, Thank you for that. It's I really appreciate that. And I think we do have to look at like how are we enabling people to carry out their lives and how tech is a part of it. Shannon, I know that AARP has a livability index, which also looks at what makes a community a supportive one for everybody, including older adults. Can you share more about what the livability index is and what it incorporates and looks at and how people can use it?
Sure. So we have what we call the AARP Livability Index platform, and it's a web-based tool that scores every community in the United States for the services and amenities that impact people's lives the most. So we provide a clear picture of how well a community is meeting the current needs, current and future needs of people as they age. So that's regardless of income, physical ability, race, or ethnicity. Um, we score communities on 61 indicators across 7 different categories of livability. So housing, neighborhood, transportation, environment, health, engagement, and opportunity. And then each of the categories has certain attributes that we look that we attribute to them that are features or characteristics of a livable community. So for example, at housing, we look at housing accessibility. For neighborhood, we look at proximity to certain destinations. And transportation, we look at transportation costs. Ishania, you mentioned environment. If we look at environment, water quality, air quality, those types of things. So the way people can use the livability index is there's a couple of different ways. You can use the index to get a better understanding of the community where you already live. So that's looking at conditions on the ground. We break the 61 indicators up by metrics, which measure existing conditions like on the ground. And then we also look at, so that's 40 metrics across those categories. And then we look at 21 policies. So policies are more inspirational. So we decided on these indicators based on existing research about what makes a livable communities. And we also have a group of experts who serve as advisors in the development of the livability index. So those policies look at these 7 different categories, and we say these are more aspirational. So if you have a certain policy in place, it helps determine how livable you can become over time. So we're looking at existing conditions and then what the possibilities are for you to become more livable over time. But one of the things that people can do is with the livability index is not only look at their own community, they can find and compare other communities that might be a good fit for themselves now in the future, or for a family member, say if you're a caregiver. So there's several features within the livability index that can help you do that. So we have a comparison tool. So if you do a search for a community, you type in an address or a town name or a zip code, you get a results page. It gives you an overall score, and it gives you category scores. And that overall score is an average of the category scores. So it gives you a picture. Average score is 50, and anything above 50, we say they're performing pretty well as a community. It's on a scale of 0 to 100. So when people say see 50, they're like, oh, we're not doing that great. But no, you have to really look at what the range of scores are for a particular city, for cities, for neighborhoods, for counties, and the like, and see where your community falls into that. But getting back to how to use some of these other tools that I mentioned, we have the comparison tool. On that results page, you'll find that feature there. You can compare up to 3 communities and see how they score overall, see how they score by category. And you can decide, hey, this looks good. A community is scoring. If housing is really important to me, then I can look across these 3 communities and look at the housing score. We also have what we call a community finder quiz. So if you're not really sure about what communities might work for you, but you know what you like, you can take this quiz, and it's a nice, easy way to answer some questions. And then the results of the quiz will provide you with a list of communities that meet those criteria. And then at the same time, we have something related to that community quiz, which is our explore all communities feature. And you can go directly to a filtering system and select your criteria across those 7 different categories. And again, get a list of communities that meet those criteria. And then from there, you can decide and explore within the livability index what those community scores are, by category, or you can even go out and do a web search, and find out a little bit more about those communities as well. So these are certain ways that we feel that the index can be beneficial for those who love their communities, want to stay, but want to see where their community is doing well, what areas improvements can be made. But also, if you feel that your community isn't working for you right now, and if you have the opportunity to make a change, what other places are there out there that could possibly work?
And
I
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Sean. I was just gonna say I've seen the livability index and it is a great resource. And I'd be excited actually to use it to compare some of the cities in our own report and see what it has to say about that. And
That would be great.
yeah, yeah.
I just want to take a moment here just so people know how to access both of these. So for the livability index, I believe it's livabilityindex.aarp.org. Is that right?
It is www.aarp.org/livability index.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, no, no, no problem. Some people get the subdomain and they instead of going right to the index. It's just easier.
Yeah. Okay. And then for the Zemplee top 10 cities to age in place, go to zemplee.com, Zemplee.com /white papers. You'll see our 2025 report, and then there's also our previous year's report if you ever wanted to compare and contrast. I want to ask Shannon, you mentioned policies as some of the rubric of the livability index. Is that like public policies in different places and you're looking at how communities are building, or is that like AARP policies and you're then like how does
No, these are actually policies that are put in place by the community.
okay.
So, not anything that not saying that, they have to have an AARP anything in place. But no, these are things like, having a housing trust fund, to help develop and support the development of more affordable housing options within your community. It could mean allowing for uh, broadband communities to develop their own broadband networks, whether or not the state allows, something like that. Um, So those are the types of, like, we look at smoking laws as well, under health, whether or not have communities have adopted a law related to smoking. So those are the types of things we have. Now we have no way of evaluating how these are implemented and how well they're working. We look just to see if they're in place, and so that a community has the opportunity to uh, with that policy in place, it can be beneficial for the community residents.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
I also want to invite the people who are attending, if you have questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat. This will be a 45-minute webinar, so we're about halfway through. I'm curious, that's the question for both of you. How do you see technology playing a role in supporting quality of life for older adults? And I kind of imagine that as we're seeing communities adopt policies and or adopt new initiatives that is part of it, but I'm curious how you each are seeing that play out. Ashanya, do you want to start?
So yeah, I can go ahead and start on this one. I think we've seen a huge impact of technology in terms of keeping people connected more. Something like video calling is just such a popular feature and resource for people that we have a product that supports that. But obviously in my own life, I've just seen the rise of being able to FaceTime or Skype even with my grandparents was really impactful for staying connected from a far distance and getting to know them better, honestly, and just being able to support them in their lives. So I think technology is really helpful at keeping people connected across distance and across time. And then in the other way, like things to support that, right? We did look at things like what are cities doing to make sure that not only is the technology existent, but that older adults are getting access to it in terms of tech classes or subsidized devices. And as Shannon mentioned, reliable broadband programs, building the infrastructure, not just providing the products and the technology, but really making sure people understand the benefits of it because technology changes so quickly and so fast, and so is the aging process. It can escalate really quickly for some people. And so for us, we found cities like Honolulu and Pittsburgh, like we mentioned, even places like Myrtle Beach are doing a lot to sort of sponsor tech classes at the local library, or they have community nonprofits or small businesses that are helping with tech classes, or nonprofits giving subsidized iPads out to people to help them access their telehealth appointments and things like that. And that's really all based around this concept of technology helping with staying connected and the video calling, even chatting, things like that. That's where I really see it having a huge impact right now. A little bit forward looking for the future, what I'm really excited about is the impact of AI and AI technology, how that can really change the aging process for us and for our world. Things like generative AI, which is like a chatbot or an LLM, or can even be advanced to something like a virtual companion or a virtual caregiver, can really sort of help supplement that isolation factor that we see a lot in aging adults, right? They Everyone wants to feel connected, and right now their technology is helping them connect with real people, and which is wonderful. But I think we're often the younger generations are often, we have jobs to attend, we have our own lives, our own kids to raise. And so it's hard to feel, you never want to feel like you're not giving your aging parent or an aging loved one the attention and care they deserve. But I think it's also hard for sandwich generations to keep up with those demands. And take care of ourselves at the same time. So I see generative AI not as a replacement, but just as a support level for something where an older adult would be able to talk to that chatbot or that companion and have a little bit of interaction. And that what we're trying to do is also sort of build something that could track things like mood and then point out any risk factors to the human, their human counterpart on the caregiving side. So I'm excited for generative AI and technology in that way. And then in terms of predictive AI, we and people in the space are seeing a lot of results about predictive analytics, being able to predict things like heart disease or cancer far earlier in the process than going to your annual checkup or having to report it because you start to get a headache or something like that. And so I think predictive analytics will really change the course of health detection and early risk detection and keep us all safer a lot longer.
There definitely are some exciting things. Like I've seen some exciting things about predictive AI being able to recognize signs of Parkinson's, which has been so hard to diagnose, and that's super exciting. And then I've seen some tech that can detect UTIs before they become big problems. And we know that older adults experience UTIs differently than younger adults. So there really is some exciting stuff that I would not have even imagined would have been possible that is on,
Right.
in development. It's really exciting.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw a study recently of they were able to analyze from someone's DNA, like mitochondrial DNA, predict the potential. It wasn't an older person, it was probably someone in their 30s, but they were able to predict what diseases they would be at risk for just based on the state of their current DNA. So yeah,
wow.
lots is coming out. Of course, it'll take a few more years for it to get to a place where we really feel stable with these predictions. And so I'm not trying to say, oh, we're at that point yet. I think a lot more work and research has to be put into it, but very excited for the future in terms of predictive and generative AI.
Shannon, what about you? How do you see technology playing a role going forward in supporting quality of life for older adults?
Yeah, well, we talked about Gen X before, Gen X reaching 60 before, and I think, as people move into becoming an older adult, uh, generations like Gen X have grown up, watching analog go to digital, and have been in the forefront and center to a lot of new technologies, and are often early adopters. And so I think, with older adults, we'll see technology obviously, still continuing to play an important role in their lives. What's really, I think, key is um, and what we're seeing in terms of like housing is like smart homes, and the type of things that can help support someone who wants to remain in their remain in their home as they age, for themselves as well as for people who may be caring for a relative, and as Ishania mentioned, maybe not being able to be there, with them. So being able to care up to some extent remotely, but having some assurance that things are are happening in the home that are predictable, that you can monitor. So having remote control like lighting or smart thermostats, different ways to control the home systems that kind of take the burden off of a loved one who may be living either by themselves or parents, who may not just who may need help with that. So I think there are definitely things that can help around the house, having video doorbells or security systems, or even fall detectors. These are things that for people who have limited mobility can help with. If you're concerned about the safety of your loved one, making sure they're safe and secure in their home, either while they're out or while they're inside, I think is important. And then just being able to monitor the comings and goings of folks who may visit or knock on a doorbell, I think, or door. Is really important. So that can, ease some concerns. But I do think that just having the access to broadband or high-speed internet is just really essential for all of our lives, and especially so for people as they age. As we saw during COVID, we had to transfer most of our lives online, for school, for shopping, for connecting with friends and relatives. It was very, very important. And so we want to make sure that now everyone, regardless of age, has those opportunities to be able to use. I mean, we may assume that everyone does, but when in reality, people may not be able to afford to have computers or pay for internet access within their homes. And so thinking through ways that we can help support those folks as well.
That's a good point. You made a couple good points, but like that's a good point because we were putting together this report and I was kind of researching more. I was surprised, and I saw the AARP Oats report.
Mhm.
I was really surprised to learn that there's still a lot of people over 60 who don't have broadband access. Um, and part of that may be, their own, finances, but part of that just may be the infrastructure in the community, particularly in rural communities. And so do you see changes happening there?
Well, I think there are promising things definitely, and Shanley kind of pointed to some of those things happening in communities, already. We did a study a few years back with Harvard where we looked at livability index data of especially around the higher performing places, and what we found was that even in some of the most livable places, older adults within those communities didn't have access or benefit from some of the amenities, services, and features that actually make those places livable. And so, it's really important for decision makers to take action to improve the quality of life for everyone, so that we're ensuring that all policies and programs created and implemented reach all residences. But with specifically with internet access, I think just having being thinking about ways that we can help people have internet access in their homes. That could be through some kind of local support, funding support if available. For those who may be unfamiliar with how to use computer equipment or navigate the internet, offering access to computers and providing training at a neighborhood library or community center can help people, get comfortable with computers and the internet.
One of the other things,
I
oh, go ahead,
oh
Ishanya, please.
god, I was just gonna follow up to Shannon's point that yes, offering that broadband access, I mean, it's still so limited for some people, and it's a little it's it's encouraging to see states that are choosing to put some effort and some funds behind it.
Mhm.
We've had some great success with a study in Kansas where the government did decide to sponsor like hotspot plus the Zemplee technology plus some other technology products, but sponsored it for some of these rural and Medicare, Medicaid population. And it is just really amazing that they're finally kind of they have a hotspot in their house. They have access to the internet. They can connect with people. So we offer sort of connections to a nurse or caregiver, and they've got someone to talk to now, and they couldn't facilitate that before. It's just really beautiful to see that happen when states and governments decide to put some dollars behind something as simple as a hotspot.
And I really like what you said too, because, if we think about people who may be in rural areas or even exurban areas, where, suburban areas that may not have access there, and even some urban areas, it's like where I live in DC, isn't really connected with transportation that well. But people who have difficulty with transportation, even, if they live 2 hours away from a doctor, being able to visit with a healthcare professional online, it can really help them um, stay stay on track with whatever regimen they have to follow with medicine or other with some of their other health needs, just making sure they're taking care of themselves on a regular basis to stay healthy. That's really important for folks who may not have either the funds for transportation services that exist or may not even have the transportation infrastructure set up to see healthcare professional on a regular basis.
I'm I wanted to also mention something that you brought up, Shannon, in terms of like the way that Gen X approaches technology versus the way that other maybe older generations, and especially like the stigma I think that people have around older adults and technology, which I know AARP has been a huge advocate for, saying, no, that's not true, and has the receipts to show that older adults really do embrace technology. There was something I saw recently that was an AARP document that was like the second largest group of people who use or rely on mobile phones are adults over 60.
I
Um,
can believe it.
yeah, so it really does bust some stigmas and stereotypes around older adults. And I think with Gen X now, either we have parents who are needing extra care and, or we're thinking about, okay, what's my life going to look like, in the next couple of decades? And I wonder if that is going to impact stigmas. Like, for example, I think that uh, digital education classes aren't just going to be the rudimentary stuff, but kind of filling the gap of, when you're in the workplace, there's a demand for you to learn, and you want to, but when you're not in the workplace, you don't have the same access to opportunities to learn. And so I could see digital access for older adults who are retired and not in the workforce evolving to fill that gap. But then I also kind of wonder, are like people who are Gen X who are the early adopters, are we taking that attitude with us into retirement and saying, no, we want all this stuff? Like, sign me up, put me on the early access. Like, do you see some of that? And I wonder if that's going to help pull the industry along. Like, am I thinking along the lines of what you're seeing or like,
So I would love to say that this is something that I look at or study, but
uh-huh.
I don't. Our AARP research, though,
Mhm.
does look at digital behavior and technology behavior of older adults. So I can definitely share resources
Uh-huh.
where we can find out, more. And I don't, because I don't want to steer in the wrong direction. But I do think that, you raise a really good point of, the fact that, since this is something that, those who are moving into the 60, the Gen X that are moving into the age 60 and beyond, we're using a lot of this technology at work, and we get home, after we stop working, there may be, there's definitely going to be technologies that are coming up after us that we won't know about. But I mean, we're a diverse group, right? So I think that, and what you find out is generations are diverse. You can't just peg them as being one thing. But I do think that you'll see some who are interested, some who maybe want to go offline because they've
Mhm.
been dealing with
Yeah.
technology for a long time and they want to, go offline for a bit. But, I think that they will have the capacity to catch on to things pretty quickly. I think that's one thing, and they may not be hesitant, as hesitant and maybe what we may have seen in the past, with adopting new technology. But I mean, my parents are in their 80s and they use their smartphones all the time. So I mean, I think presenting folks with the opportunity to see how technology can work and how they can benefit from it, I think that's just, what we need to continue to do, so that people again don't feel left out. And I think, when it comes to education or training, meet people where they are. So some may be advanced, some intermediate, and some beginners. But as long as we have training that can help each of those, type of users, I think is important.
Mm.
What do you think, Ashania?
I like that concept a lot, Shannon. It's like the equity, right? Like every generation is so different, mine, yours, and even the ones we work with today. Some people cotton on to the ideas quickly, some people understand and just don't want to FaceTime with people. It's very personal preferences. And I think our job in the technology space is to always just say, here are the solutions we can provide. Here's how to use them, make it as easy as possible for that to be done. And then it's up to the person, right? Like to choose to use it or not. For example, like I have one of our users that's out in Kansas, they just love their post-it notes, right? I'm like, oh, you could do this on a smart device. You don't have to write things down. And I think as they get, continue to pregnant with older, lose mobility, it's good that they know that this is an option. But for now, post-it notes are working just fine. And I think that's beautiful too. That's a form of technology in and of itself. So yeah, the equity is a big concern for us here at Zemplee. We really try to meet people at each of their different stages in terms of technology and making sure they just know what's possible, what's capable, and then making sure it's as easy for them to get to it as possible. But of course, government funding always helps push these things along in different states. And so I think that's a big key player for us as well. Like programs have to be pushed not only by us, the private companies, but like it's really helpful when the community, the public infrastructure is also behind pushing access to these things.
I think
I
one
would
of
say
the,
I think
go,
it does take a broad coalition of community stakeholders, including residents, to come up with solutions and have those solutions be disseminated and used. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for perhaps like as more generations enter, we'll have more like influencers that are in their 80s or in their 60s, right? That'll be very fun to see.
Mhm. And I love your point about public participation in civic engagement in helping to make these changes happen. Like there was one community that I came across that used AI and they surveyed residents about what they wanted in their community and then used AI to analyze the responses to come up with public policies in terms of what they wanted in their community. And at the top of the list was more healthcare providers in that community instead of having to drive 2 hours away, to your point, Shannon. So I think that, being able to use technology even in helping people become more involved at a civic level and helping to put these policies in place to, co-create our communities is, across generations and other different groups is going to be really an exciting as we go forward. It is 2:45 and I want to just open the floor to both of you to see if you have any last thoughts. I just checked, we don't have any questions from our audience, but if you have any last thoughts, I'd love to hear from you about technology and best places to live and so on.
So I'll go. So just a couple of things. I want everyone to know that we are going to be releasing in a 2025 update of the Livability Index. This is our 10-year anniversary of the Livability Index. So the new data and new scores will be released on December 9th of this year. So you can register for the event. I can provide the link to the information to you, Sean, if you wanted to share.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. And then just say that I'm really excited about the opportunity that technology and other resources bring to people to help them prepare themselves for the future and really make informed decisions about uh, really critical aspects of their lives. So for now and into the future. And it's great to be able to be part of an organization, but also in partnership with other organizations that provide resources to individuals and their families to help improve their quality of life. So, I'm really excited to be a part of this webinar today and to share information with people who have an interest in livable communities and technology and to improve the quality of life for people as they age.
Excellent. Shawnee, do you have any parting thoughts, statements, things you're excited about?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you so much, Shannon, and to AARP for the research behind everything you do. I mean, it's stuff that we use too at Zemplee to kind of validate our products and ideas, and it's just an incredible organization.
Mhm.
And then I'll follow it up with, I think livable communities is, it is literally our lives that are in our hands, and it's really important that we think about these things like technology access, cost of living, healthcare access, as we continue to build livable communities and spaces in this country. So those are top of mind for us at Zemplee as well.
Thank you both for taking the time to have this conversation. I really appreciate it. And I look forward, to moving this conversation forward and, all the different ways, social media, newsletters, just keeping people engaged in this conversation, so we can all live optimal lives and reach our full potential as human beings.
I
Um,
mean, I think that's the goal. It's not a
yeah,
bad goal.
definitely. So we'll make this for everybody else who's watching. We'll make this replay available. And thank you for watching with us today. We really appreciate it. Please stay engaged. Again, you can get our report at zemplee.com/whitepapers. And if you have any questions about Zemplee, you can click the button to request a demo or hit the contact us page, and we'll be happy to reach out to you and support you. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Nice to meet you both. Bye.
Great. Bye-bye.